Good evening and welcome to it. It's the Private Property Podcast where we provide valuable knowledge and information on all things property related. Whether you are a first-time home buyer, a seasoned investor, or you're just looking for some expert advice, we have got you covered. All you need to do is tune in every Tuesday and every Thursday at 7 p.m. for tips, insights, and expert advice on burning topics related to property, because this podcast is brought to you proudly by Private Property. Remember, you can find your new home on privateproperty.co.za. Welcome to the Private Property Podcast. On tonight's episode, we will be exploring how one can use their actual salary to begin their property portfolio. We are speaking to our resident saver and know it all about using whatever small monies you can to build your portfolio. Someone who paid off his bond in a very short space of time. One of our most popular episodes, actually. We are in studio with Percy Singo, who's joining us to tell us about how we can now use your actual salary that you have to begin your property portfolio journey. Before we dive into this conversation, though, please remember to comment below and share your thoughts about today's show. You can join the conversation by using the hashtag find your new home on privateproperty.co.za and hashtag the Private Property Podcast on all social media. We'll be keeping an eye out for all of your posts, and we may even feature some of your comments on the show. Like I said, this is the Private Property Podcast, where we provide you with valuable information on all things property related. Like I said before, I am not alone in studio. I am joined by Percy Singo, who spoke to us last time about paying off your bond in a really short space of time. Percy, welcome to studio. How are you?
No, thank you. I'm okay. Thank you. Yes.
If the socials are anything to go by, you've been a very busy bee. What have you been up to since the last time we saw you?
Yes, I believe we are here, or we are created to work the ground. So it's very important for us to be working, because if you don't work hard, you end up being in that situation where you actually kill your parents when they're still alive. Something like when you are saying that when my parents pass away, I will inherit this house. There's a lot of people who are just waiting for inheritance. And then it's because you are not putting on the work so that you can achieve your goals and be able to stand on yourself without relying mainly on the parents.
When your parents die, yeah.
Also other things, yes. Yes.
So is that what you've been up to?
So
not waiting for your parents to die.
What I've been up to, it's a lot of for this year I've not been doing a lot of projects, and in terms of building construction projects, I've just been doing a lot of work in regards to sharing of information and sharing of insight. So I've been doing a lot of events. This year I've done around 8 events, which I'm being invited in different platforms to talk about saving or property investment.
Okay, and speaking of that, how do you suggest that one go about now starting their property portfolio? I mean, I must say, you have been one of the most helpful guests that we've had. In terms of the last conversation that we had, you gave very useful sort of factual step-by-step information on how to do a particular thing, which was at the time paying off your bond in a much shorter time. So now we're talking about starting a whole property portfolio. How are you suggesting that we go about doing such a thing?
I'm suggesting that you can even use just your salary to start your property portfolio.
Percy, do you know how much some of us are earning? No.
And then I believe you are right. There is a lot of people who are earning small amounts of money, which is a challenge to go into property. But there are other platforms like just buying shares in those companies which are listed property companies. And again, I feel like we must not underestimate the power of our salaries and or be too quick to
say no, I can't afford it
on our job, because the job might be your lessons to that investment portfolio. For somebody like me, I started purely on my salary, so I saved myself towards the property investment. But with time, when the investment has grown, you start to have those options to get funding from elsewhere. Like one day I was just looking at myself to say, how much have I saved from the time I started saving to now? And I've saved a lot of money, which is just the foundation of my property investment. Yes.
So you're saying whatever 4th hour to maybe 15th hour, whatever,
Yes.
you can use that to begin an actual property portfolio, because it seems,
Yes.
you think about it and it seems like, I mean, I don't know how I'm going to manage to do this. Am I
Yes.
buying an RDP house? Am I
Yes.
buying in Santon? Like, what am I doing?
There's a lot of property strategies out there. You can do the one which you are buying, and then you keep that property for a certain period of time, then you sell it, then you have a capital gain. Or you want to go into township where you are just buying in a township and then you build back rooms, and then which is a very good strategy to use when you want to start into property investment, because it gives you that cash flow which enables you to also access funding.
I feel like a lot of the thing that you preach is about saving. Take the money, put it away, get a lump sum. I had this much after I saved whatever. But again, going back to how much people are earning, it's
Yes.
like, must I live like a poor person now for the next 65 years?
Yes.
Because I don't want to
Yes.
want to do that.
Saving is not necessarily to abuse yourself, because I hear a lot of people saying things like,
It feels
what
like
if-
deprivation. It feels like deprivation. It feels like the things that I could be doing with my money,
Yes.
I now can't enjoy my life. I can't
Yes.
travel. I
Yes.
can't go out to eat. I
Yes.
can't go out with my friends. I
Yes.
can't do a bunch of things because
Yes.
now I'm prioritizing this property portfolio, and I've got to
Yes.
save and take the money and put it in my nest egg.
Yes, there is a lot of sacrificing, but I believe it's not a permanent sacrificing. It's more like just a short-term sacrifices for long-term enjoyment. Because if you just sacrifice for 5 years, you say, I'm going to sacrifice to start this, so that in the later stage I will depend on the investment to do those things that I wanted to do. For example, I feel like if one wants to upgrade their life, they should look at an investment to say, which investment can I go into which will pay for this thing that I want to do? If I want to do to buy a car, for example, I can say, what can I do which can give me money, so that money I can use it to pay for that car. Then your life become easy, because you are making provision for that liability. Because if you just focus on buying a lot of liabilities, you end up not being able to invest on anything. Yes.
Because you've got no assets actually
Yes.
at the end of the
Yes.
day, and obviously the things you keep investing in keep depreciating, or you
Yes.
drink them away. But that's not where we are. I want you to give
Yes.
me a very practical example. Let's
Yes.
say it's me, Sibs. I earn 20,000 a month.
Yeah.
Advise me.
Yeah. Okay. No, it will depend on a lot of things, because our expenses are not the same. So it will depend on your expenses, or what kind of expenses are you having. But for me, if I'm earning around the amount that you just mentioned, it will depend. Is it after tax or before
Let's
tax?
say 20,000 after tax. Let's
After
go.
tax, I
Yeah.
can be able to save 10,000 from that.
How?
Yes, which that 10,000 is like 120,000 per year, which is a good money to start that property portfolio. But again, it will depend on the expenses. to
Because
say
it
what
means you're
kind
not
of
eating much
expenses.
anymore. So you're starving. You're starving every day.
Not really. For me, I remember back in the days when I started working, I was earning something like 6,000. I was saving 3,000 every month. Then I changed. I got a better job. I was earning 10,000. I was saving 5,000. Then I changed. I got another job. I was earning 32,000. I was saving 15,000.
So you're
And
always
then-
aiming to save about 50% of your salary, from what
It
I'm
has
getting.
never been something that I planned to say I'm going to save half of the salary, but for some reason I was able to save half of the salary. But when I'm growing, I'm realizing that at the moment I can't save that half of the salary. But whatever amount that I'm saving, if I tell it to somebody, they will be amazed to say, can a person be able to save this amount?
And speaking of, can a
Yes.
person be able to save this amount? What sacrifices are you suggesting that people make? In what areas? And I know you're
Yes.
going to start with entertainment
Yes.
and Uber Eats and going out. So fine, we get it. Go out,
No,
less.
there's a lot of sacrifices that you can do. And then I feel like a car is one of those things
Okay.
which you can say, I'm going to sacrifice on a car. For me, I drive a very small car. I drive a car which I'm paying around 3.5. And then when I check at the amount that I'm making in a month, it's more than 140,000 that I make every month. For somebody who's making that amount of money to be driving a 3.5 car, it's definitely a sacrifice. But you can also sacrifice on a lot of things. The number of times you go to travel, because there's a lot of people who are always traveling, and then you end up not being able to save. But if you can manage it, you see what you can do on that one, then it becomes very helpful.
Percy, sorry, I got stuck there by your salary. Are you married?
No.
I'm not asking for me. I am married. I'm not asking for me. How much did you say you make per month, Percy?
No. I was not talking
Percy's
about
single, guys.
I'm not single.
Percy is unmarried.
Yes, that's
okay,
true.
sharp.
That's true. So yes, with a lot of discipline, it's required in order for you to save. So it will go to your lifestyle. I feel like a lot of people struggle to save and struggle to venture into investment because of their lifestyle. If you focus on your lifestyle and you make sure that you manage that lifestyle, you will be able to save. I feel like when a person say I'm struggling to save, they are saying I'm struggling to manage myself. Because if you can manage yourself, it will be easy to save. And then to save, it's not to say you have to save a lot of amount. Whatever amount that you are able to save, it's important. It can go a long way. And then when you are saving, you start to have an interest. Like if you see 100,000 in your account, next time you want to see 200,000. So it becomes that interest for you to see more. And then you will start to look for ways to say, what can I cut down on so that I can be able to save more? But again, just saving alone, it's not enough, because when you are saving, you are actually losing by putting money in the bank. So you'll have to find that alternative to say, what can I invest in? So that's for me, that alternative becomes a property investment. Yes.
Okay. On your property journey now, what would you say you wish you'd known sooner? And I know we discussed the last time about the taking the money and saving the money, and you've touched on it now, and putting it in the bank and accumulating that interest, whereas you would have benefited going another route.
Yes.
So what would you say, like, you wish you'd known before and you want people to know?
I think what I would have liked to know is to say it's better to use your money to grow your income than to use your money to try to pay off debts. Okay. For example, if I have R1 million now, and then I have a house which is owing R1 million, I wouldn't take that within 1 million and try to pay off the house. I would rather take off the 1 million and invest it into something that will generate money. For example, a 1 million rent, if you put it on a house and then you go and rent out that house you might get something less than 10,000 a month on it, because it's a million rent house. Yeah. But if you take a million rent and then you invest it, for me, it takes 100,000 to do one bachelor flat. So if I've got 1 million, it means I've got 10 bachelors. It takes around 3.5 for me. I rent it out around 3.5 or 4,000. So if I'm renting it, let's say 3.5, it means already I'm making 35,000 instead of making less than 10,000 when I've paid off one house. So I focus mainly on growing the portfolio rather than trying to settle debts at the moment.
Okay. I love this example that you've made. It's a very practical one, but it's also one that shows that you can go smaller to get bigger returns. I think a lot of people think about investment and property in a way that's like, okay, it must be the 3-bedroom, there must be a swimming pool, there must be a whatever, and this and this and this, jacuzzi, hot tub, whatever. Whereas you could get more returns and more money with this 3.5 that you're getting every month.
Yes, you are right. And I feel like the bigger you go, the higher the risk. For example, if you build a 4-bedroom house, you are trying to rent it out as a 4-bedroom. If you don't get a tenant, it means you get zero for that month. But if you've got 10 bachelors, there is no way that you won't be having, for example, 5 tenants, which obviously you'll be making 17,500 per month instead of making nothing with this 4-bedroom house. Yes.
That's one of the most helpful things I've ever heard. What are some of the common mistakes people make when it comes to now building their property portfolio?
Yeah, there's a lot of mistake that people make, but I feel like most of them it's the research. People they don't do research, and then they make a lot of those property mistakes. And then the other thing besides the research, I feel like the other mistake is to look for the house instead of looking at the stand, because I feel like a house you can change, but a stand you cannot change. So for me, I look at both to say if I'm going to buy a house for investment, the stand becomes the main thing because I can be able to go bigger in the future when I get the funds. But if you go for the house and you don't consider the stand, when you get the money maybe to develop, you don't have a place to develop. Now you are thinking of selling and other things.
Percy, what would you say some of the other most common mistakes are?
Yeah, I think the other common mistake is just to hear somebody saying, I bought a student accommodation, and then you want to do a student accommodation in another area without knowing about that area, or will the student accommodation be good for that area? Because sometimes the problem is not the property, it's the strategy that you are applying on a property.
Okay.
For example, if you buy an apartment in a place where there's a lagoon, it will be good to use that apartment as a B&B instead of trying to use it as a monthly rental, because you won't be making enough to even cover for the expenses of that apartment. Yes.
Okay. Listen, what would you give, what kind of advice would you give to a first-time home buyer? They're considering buying their first home. It's 2023. They've done the research. They've saved.
Yes.
But now there's all of these hikes. It went up again the other day. What are you saying we must do?
Yeah, no, there's a big challenge in terms of hikes, because a lot of people who bought property during COVID, they thought they could afford, but they are starting to realize now with all the hikes that I can't afford. Can I sell the property? And you're trying to get rid of this property, and people are not affording to even buy that property. So you end up stuck with the property. And then again, there's a lot of rules outside there. There is a 30% rule, which is also, I feel like it's misleading a lot of people, because they say you qualify a house that you can pay with 30% of your gross income. For example, if you earn 100,000, you can qualify for a house of 30,000. But I feel like that is not good, because if you have got other huge expenses, you can end up having this house that you are not able to pay for it. So I think you should not look at the highest house you can get. I feel like when you are buying a house, if you qualify for 30,000, I would rather say go down to 25,000, so that when there are things like hikes, you can be able to still cover those increases. Again, besides that, I feel like when you buy a house for investment, you should quickly or immediately try to increase the amount that you are getting in that house. For example, if you buy in a township or you buy a 2-bedroom house, it's very important that you go and you start building those rooms, the back rooms, so that you can be able to make more money
from the same property.
So that when there are challenges, you can still be able to pay for those.
I'll take from here to put in here,
and then for me, in this increases, my houses have increased by more than 12,000, but because I'm always trying to increase the amount that I'm getting from the properties, it's like even if they are increasing it, I can still afford to keep all the houses. Yes.
So you're basically saying, look at the affordability,
yes,
and what they say you can afford, and then just go a little bit lower, or always be prepared for the shortfall and have a cushion there somehow, some way to allow for all of these, because we don't know when they'll stop hiking things, I suppose.
Yes. Yeah, I feel like we don't know, because it's controlled by inflation, and inflation at the moment is around 7%, which is very high. So they might still increase.
It might get worse.
Don't know. Yeah.
All right. I hear you. Percy, thank you so much.
Yes.
I love having conversations with you. They're always incredibly helpful. I don't know how I'm going to save as much as you think we should be saving, but we will try. I think next time we must come and then we must do a saving seminar. And then we'll just, how did you do it? You can give us a step by step of how it is that you put away almost 50% of your salary every month, no matter how much you make.
I think every amount matters. If you save 300, if you save 1,000, it's enough. Any amount that you can be able to save is good.
Okay. And
Thank you.
yeah, we'll take that with us, and also probably have to move back in with our parents. Listen, thank you so much for joining us on today's episode. Don't forget to join the conversation on social media, hashtag the Private Property Podcast. You can catch us on Facebook, on YouTube, on all of the socials. Otherwise, we'll see you next week, or rather on the next episode of the Private Property Podcast. I am Sibs Malaba Matiela. See you next time.